Alright, 7th and 8th graders, we are going to be creating a collaborative mural to be displayed in the main display case, the one that's right across from the main stairwell. This mural is rainbow themed, as you can see, and that's not just because me, Miss Braun, likes rainbow. It's for a reason. When the pandemic started, a really popular phrase and imagery kept starting to happen. You guys might have seen it in your own communities, but rainbows started to be appearing with the phrase, everything will be okay. It originated in Italy because they were one of the first countries to be quarantined, and it just is kind of a really hopeful, inspiring message that we want to go into the school year with. Each class period will be assigned a color, first period, second period, third period, fourth period, 6th period, 7th period. And what's beautiful about this is we're going to have a lot of unity from the color scheme that we've chosen, but as you can just see in the example I created, there is so much variety that is also in this piece of art. So here are some things that we would like you to follow just to make sure that the mural is cohesive and unified. So what you're going to be getting is a little packet of papers. When you take the paper clip off, you're going to have a big square, you're going to have a triangle, and you're going to have 2 little squares. And rule number 1 is the big square is what you're going to actually attach all your little pieces to. So when Mrs. Cantrell and I put this in the display case, we're putting these 6" by 6" squares. So as you can see on my example, I glued all my little pieces to the big piece. Each color that you get has to be used in some way. I want to be able to see all 4 colors displayed in your final design. You can have some leftovers, so if you end up cutting, say, this white square across into 2 triangles and you only want to use 1 triangle, that's totally okay. But you can't get any more. So if you would like 2 white squares, you can't have that. You're just using the materials that you're given. We highly recommend stick with geometric shapes. We're going to shy away from organic shapes like, say, like a paint blob or a raindrop or a flower shape. And also because of time on this very first day of school, we're going to stick with geometric shapes. So geometric shapes are shapes that have names, or otherwise they're shapes that you know from math. So things like squares, rectangles, triangles, trapezoids, those are the types of things that you're going to be using for this project. Nothing can be hanging off the edge. So like if you want to position your triangle like this, because you're like, oh wow, that's really cool how it made a blue stripe, you would have to snip off this little triangle. And then if it was me, I would take that triangle and put it somewhere else in my design. Okay, so those are the only requirements that you have. I wanted to show you guys this example here because it goes from easy to complex, and I'll kind of explain why. So in the red one right here, I actually did no cutting at all. I just took my papers and I arranged them pretty much like I'm going to show you now, like that. And then I glued it. So the process that we're using, even when you go from simple to complex, is a 3-step process. You're going to cut, or maybe you don't want to cut. You're going to arrange, which is also called compose, and then you're going to glue down. When you glue, I recommend going from the back all the way to the front. Another way of thinking it is I want to put down all my big details first, and then on the top put my little details. For the orange, what I did is I took everything but the big square. You want to leave the big square hold. I took all of my pieces and cut them down the middle. So you can eyeball it, or if you want to be super precise, you can fold. Make a nice fold, you know, with your fingernail or the edge of the scissors. If you're careful, you can make a nice crease. So I'm just cutting every single item that I had, I cut in half for the orange design. Like so. And then I took all these pieces and arranged this design. In the yellow one, what I did is, again, I'm getting a little bit more complex, so I took all of these triangles and I cut them once more. So here we have no cutting, we have halved, we have quarter cut. So you just get a lot more to play with. It looks like there's more elements. Down here is where I got super fancy, and I kind of broke away from the triangles a little bit. So what I did is I actually took some of the shapes and cut other shapes into them. Things like irregular trapezoids, plain old lines. I took the square and I just cut it in half and made a rectangle. I took my big triangle and cut this way into it, and then spaced it apart. In the blue square here, I started to do something called making negative space. So I took my triangle and I cut it like this. And as you can see when I put it down, or maybe when I put it on the white here, you can see that it makes another shape by putting it down. So I started to play with negative space here, and in the purple one, I really started to play with negative space by actually putting cutouts. This is really similar to when you guys make snowflakes at wintertime. So you just take like this, and then when you lay it down, it has negative space. Just want to show you when you're gluing, again, put your big elements first, and because we have so many different shapes going on, please just make sure that your glue stick goes all the way to the edges. You don't have to hit the middles, and then when you put it down, don't just like expect that it's going to stick itself. Just take your finger Rub it along the edge. When you start to layer on more than one space, it's going to be really important that you might want to do that in between space there, because this is a gap now since the dark blue is raised on top of the light blue. So I would just want to make sure right here to kind of rub my finger along there. Ta-da! All right, when you are done for cleanup procedures, these are going to go on the drying rack in a socially distanced manner. If you borrowed any supplies from Mrs. Cantrell and I, you're going to need to put these supplies in the bin that says supplies to be disinfected, and then kind of clean up your station. So if you have any scraps, please throw them in the recycling or the trash can nearest your seat. All right, let's get to creating, guys.